at the communication level between Japan and United States. Like United States, we're more direct. Like I think the term is like we're a very low context society where what we say, you should take it at face value. While Japan is high contextual where, yeah, we might say it, but you're supposed to read in between the lines like what we actually mean.
Would you rate America as the best country in the world?
In what, just overall or
in overall metrics, I guess. I think so.
Japanese people just walk. They walk everywhere and their portions are damn small. You know, when I went to McDonald's and I asked for a large, that's America small. Right. Like that is not the same.
There is, you can't get any bigger than that.
Yeah.
Too. Like, and I don't think you get free refills in Japan.
It's very service because I believe that Japanese takes, it kind of goes back to the harmony aspect where it's not just you buying the product, it's from your experience when you enter to when you leave.
And you know what's funny? They don't expect tip in Japan.
Goddamn tip.
You get all that service and they don't expect tip.
You know,
versus here, you don't get no service, but they expect all the tip.
Tipping culture is such a trigger for me because so now that your parents are coming back from Japan and now that we're going to Japan too, are you excited?
Yeah, I mean,
because you go there every year. You go twice a year.
Yeah,
you go in December and
I
you
just
go
came
in
back
April.
from going there for Christmas and New Year's, and I just came back, and then we're going again in April.
So you like it more during holiday time or non-holiday time?
Definitely more holiday times, just because there's things to do around Christmas and New Year's out there. If I'm going during regular time, then it's just, I don't know, just.
Is KFC a big thing during Christmas?
It is. You know why though?
Why? Tell me.
Only because he looks like Santa Claus. That is the only reason why KFC is a thing.
Oh, because he got like the white beard.
Yeah. Colonel Sanders.
Colonel Sanders. But do they dress him up in the Santa outfit?
Yeah, they put the Santa outfit during Christmas time. But it is a thing to do during Christmas is get KFC.
But you know the KFC actually tastes pretty good.
I never had it actually.
So really?
Yeah.
You never had it?
Not in Japan.
You never had KFC over there?
I've had Pizza Hut in Japan, but I never had
Well, how
KFC.
is Pizza Hut?
It's actually pretty good.
Is it?
Yeah.
You know, I always feel like Japanese people, they know how to cook their foods well.
Mm-hmm. Well, Japan has the most Michelin star restaurants than any other country in the world.
How does a Michelin star go? Is it 1, 2, or is there a rank, or is it just you get a Michelin star and that's it?
Yeah, I thought it's just you're just the Michelin star. I didn't know if it's multi or anything. I might be wrong. I've never been to a Michelin star restaurant either. So, but we're going to do that, right? On this upcoming.
We are. Well,
we're going to do.
I think
ramen Michelin star, or
you know, it makes me wonder. I wonder how much of a level difference there is between like a good ramen versus a Michelin ramen. Like, is it worth the price? Like, is it worth the? I would assume it's going to be at least double the price, right?
Well, it's the ingredients, right, that you use that are.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
I don't know how the Michelin star ranking goes. Is it by the taste, the ingredients, the price?
It's everywhere from the service,
right,
to the ambience, to the quality of the food, to the taste.
And I've seen some ghetto-ass places that are Michelin stars. And Vietnam, where it's like, looks like someone's kitchen and it's a Michelin star restaurant.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily think it has to do with the price, but I think it's just the overall experience. Like, this is for what you're getting and for the overall experience. This is what it matches, like this is how it exceeds our standards and this is why it gets a star.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that Japanese restaurants, a lot of them gets it because a lot of them have what I would call a lifelong committed workers, right? Because you start them in a basic kitchen area and then after many years they work up to the chef or whatever position. I mean,
what was it? The I Dream of Sushi or the Jiro one?
Yeah.
So that one, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but
I've seen it.
In that documentary, I guess his son was like, he was in charge of doing the seaweed drying for like 10 years or something.
Yeah.
And then he finally got another job or something. But I mean, they take it very seriously, like apprenticeship and, becoming a master sushi chef or any other industry. Like it takes decades or,
but I mean,
more so than American cuisine,
I feel like that's very embedded in like Japanese culture where it's very expected for like, hey, if you work at this company, you're gonna stay at this company.
Yeah, because loyalties are very important in Japan.
Because in the United States, obviously we switch around, right? So you might work at a company for 2 or 3 years, then you're like, okay, I'm gonna go to another company. But I feel like, damn, in Japan, like if you start here, you might potentially die here. Like it's a lifelong journey.
Yeah, it's very, very much a loyalty-centric nation where moving around just shows that, you're not committed to anything. So it's actually seen as a bad mark versus here. That's the only way you get promotions is by, jumping around in industries or companies. But in Japan, it's you don't get that bump when you move around. They actually frown upon people. Like, oh, why are you coming to us? What's wrong with your old company?
So if I was working at a company A in Japan, and let's say I've been there for 5 years, but if I want to switch to company B, because let's say company A just, for reasons outside of my control, I moved.
Yeah.
Would company B be like, oh, you have to start at the bottom, or would they give me a similar rank to where it left?
That I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if you start from scratch again for moving companies.
Dude, that's brutal.
Yeah.
Because
the longevity of how long you've been in a company is very important in Japan. So seniority, like, if you're older or if you've been at the company a longer period, then you respect those, positions and higher hierarchies, I suppose.
So they respect that seniority based more than a merit.
Yeah. Like here, I mean,
because the United States is very merit based. As long as you get the results and as long as you get the work done, that's what matters, you know? And it's not unexpected to like voice your disagreement or a different conflicting opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the HR department here is nothing like the HR department in Japan. Japan is more very much so on the company side versus the individual side.
I mean, the US is along the company side too.
Right, it protects, but then you can also, I don't know, file complaints and they take it seriously too. Versus Japan as an individual, if you file a complaint, they tend to not take it seriously or tend to not be on your side.
Oh, okay. So would you kind of say that they're more willing to like brush it under the rug?
Yeah.
Like sweep it there?
Yeah. So like when you see Japan from the media side, you always think they're holistic or, very,
but it's because of that image.
It's that image. But if you look under the hood, just like anything else, Japan has a lot of problems as well.
So would you say that would you rather work for a US company over a Japanese company?
Various.
Because the work-life balance is better?
Work-life balance and just I mean, if in Japan, it's very typical to be working 12-hour days.
Because, it's very interesting because in, at least in California or at least anywhere in the United States, you have overtime. So you work I think overtime is generally defined as 40 hours per week.
Yeah.
Anything above that, you get 1.5 times.
Sure.
But I guess in Japan, overtime, it doesn't work that way. Overtime is actually embedded in your normal salary range because it's actually expected that you're going to work overtime. Mm-hmm. So do you know, like, how much overtime are we talking about? Are we talking like 2 hours, 3 hours?
Like I said, 12-hour days is very normal in Japan.
That's considered expected?
That's, if you are expected to progress in the rankings or, move up in, positions, it's expected you put in that kind of work.
But let's say you don't want to put in that.
Then you don't move up the ranks. This is why the suicide rate in Japan is very high because of this.
That is true. I did read a stats that the suicide rates in Japan and Korea is abnormally high for students and for working professionals just because
salary working professions too.
Yeah. So it makes me wonder, like, did it get better or is it still kind of the same as it was decades ago?
From what I'm hearing, it's getting a little bit better. Like back in the day, like if your boss said, "Hey, let's go drinking," after work, you were like almost, you can't say no, and you had to, no matter how much work you have the next day as a subordinate, you have to go out and
Is it because it's expected to like, the company is sort of like your second family and you can't reject your seniors? Is that the mentality?
Yeah, I mean it's a very embedded in your just respecting the hierarchy is what it is.
But I don't understand why would the seniors want you to go drinking with them? Like if I'm the senior and I'm done with work, why don't Like, why don't I just want to go home to my family?
I think that's it. People don't want to go back to their families.
Wait, why do you say that?
That I don't know. I mean, whether it's that different from American, lifestyles at home or versus, I mean, there's a lot of travel that happens in Japan. So a lot of salarymen don't go home because they're always traveling. Because Japan, Zoom calls and non face to face is very informal, and Japan is a very formal country, so they want to.
So Zoom is not widely used like it is in the United States.
If at all, yeah. I mean, because they want the formality. So if they're going to have a meeting, in person kind of thing.
I see what you're saying, because that body language, that's
correct.
Everything how you gesture is
So
very important.
Traveling in Japan as a salaryman, like you are almost expected to travel a lot.
Yeah.
Because
now that you mention it, that's actually a good point, because I did notice that the communication level between Japan and United States, like United States, we're more direct. Like sure. I think the term is like we're a very low context society where what we say, you should take it at face value. While Japan is high contextual where, yeah, we might say it, but you're supposed to read in between the lines, like what we actually mean.
Yeah.
And so as a foreigner, yeah, it's great because I'm a tourist. I'm visiting the country for 2 weeks. The service is great. But maybe deep down, like, when are these people going to leave?
Right.
So
because Japan's a very nationalistic country, right? So
But I feel like the generations are more opening up now. Or is it still not the case?
I mean, superficial or, from media, from outside perspective, it might look that way. But I don't think so as a country as a whole. Yeah, they still look at foreigners, or treat foreigners differently than they would, how we, U.S. will,
because I feel like
immigrants and such.
Obviously, United States is a melting pot. So it's not unheard of to get immigrants. But in Japan, it's very, hey, you can be here, but you're expected to leave at some point.
Yeah.
And so I know that Japan is very like, okay, you're not one of us, but maybe there's a change in that sentiment, like where, hey, you may not be one of us, but maybe we can grant you a longer stay.
And I think that change is happening because of the low birth rates right now. Like the population is declining, so there's a lot more older people.
Like it's hard to replace the aging population.
Yeah, so I think in that sense they're more welcoming to immigrants and whatnot. But
I mean, right now the U.S. has a positive birth rate, so a positive population increase, and part of it is attributed to immigration. But I wonder, because it's not just a trend with Japan, it's a trend I noticed with South Korea as well. So I wonder if that trend in declining population rate is due to overworking, where you can't raise a family on a single income. Is it due to, marriage born out of convenience and not out of love? Like, I wonder what the factors are. Like, do you happen to have any insight into that?
Why the population's declining?
Yeah, like why people are not having kids, pretty much.
If I had to guess, and this is only a guess, it's probably because of the sex industry that's happening in Japan. Because of how prominent it is, a lot of girls or, females will go into that kind of work, and that will stifle marriages. They would be off track of getting married, in their early 20s, rather than going to this industry and making the money and instead of going to because Japan is a very up there. I mean, South Korea probably the same as well. Maybe not as much as Japan, but to me, I think that's what's causing.
So you think
declining.
that? But
nobody wants to get married.
I feel like, I mean, I don't have any stats, but I just feel like, Japan always had this kind of, it's there, but we're not going to address it, right? Like it's an open secret pretty much.
Sure.
Like this whole sex industry. But I feel like even during times of population increase, that sex industry was there.
Yeah.
So I wonder, that could be a factor. But I also wonder if it's just because it's just too expensive to raise a kid. Because like you said, right, you're working 12 hours. The last thing you want to do after you work at 12 hours is thinking about raising a family.
Yeah.
You're just physically and mentally exhausted. So if I was to take a guess, and granted, I don't live there, so I don't know. But I would assume that it would need a systemic overhaul from top bottom, right? So you would need to change the policy where, hey, we should not have our juniors or subordinates work 12-hour shifts or 13-hour shifts. In fact, I know we talk about like the Golden Week in the month of April, where it's like a week-long holiday.
Everybody gets a week off.
Exactly, but
I feel
like
corporate people, salarymen, but
yeah,
hourly, you still need your convenience stores open. So
yeah, but I just feel like that's insane. Like 12, 13 hours, like that's something you expect in the United States. You expect that in like investment banking, private equity. Like if you and I were expected to work 50-hour work week, I'd be like, well, you better pay me a lot of money.
Right. And yeah, they get paid very, very low. I mean, back in the 80s before the bubble broke, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, people were making good money and, you know, being able to invest and go still out and party, after working long days and stuff like that. But now post bubble break, it's very, very much so where it's like you're being overworked for not paying money. You're not being, go take vacations with your family if you had a family or. Yeah. So everything. Yeah.
Because I know that a lot of it's very interesting, right? Because in United States, and I would assume Japan is the same way. We are a monogamous culture. Mm-hmm. One partner in the United States, like, hey, prostitution, whether it's, cheating, whether it's paid or, you meet someone by dating, it's forbidden.
Sure.
But I know in Japan, at least from what I've seen, is if it's you're cheating on your partner, but in the forms of prostitution, that's more acceptable because it's transactional.
Correct.
Because there's no emotional feelings behind it.
And I don't know if it's encouraged, but it's, looked the other way just because it doesn't lead to an actual leaving the family kind of thing. Where the man will actually run off with the prostitute and get married to her because she's a prostitute. So
because it's just business.
Right, because he's paying her to,
and so
that transaction.
It makes me wonder, a lot of families who are married or who are together, I don't know if arranged marriages are popular in Japan. I don't know if it still is.
Used to be, for sure.
Used to be.
I don't know if in today's day and age it's still a thing, just because you still have like, the Tinder and all that kind of dating apps that became more prominent even in Japan. So before that, arranged marriages were a way for people that worked a lot that didn't have time to date and then meet stuff like that, or they have things used to call gokons where you have like a group of people and you go meet another group of people and that's how you date and meet somebody there. But with the rises of all these things, I don't think arranged marriages is as popular as it used to be.
Because to me, this is how I look at it. I'm married. I married a woman that I love. I'm more willing to have a family with her. Mm-hmm. But if I married someone out of convenience or someone who was like, hey, I think this is a good fit for you, like by my parents, I might do it out of family obligation, but I'm more reluctant to do it.
Yeah.
So I wonder if a lot of cases where people are childless, it's out of simply due to, I'm married to you, but because it's a financial convenience. Because I feel like a lot of people are married because it's more of a societal thing. Like, hey, you're reaching that age where you should be married.
Yeah.
In America, we're very individualistic. You do what you want, that's fine, on you, boo-boo. But in Japan, it's very collectivism. Like, if you stray away from the social norm, it's a black sheep. Like, you don't look good. So I feel like a lot of...
they'll, not attack you, but shame you.
Exactly. Like, you'll be societal, like, peer pressured.
For sure.
And so I feel like a lot of women or men just kind of settle for whatever's out there, and they're like, well, I can't divorce you because then it looks bad. At the same time, I don't really want to have a kid with you, or we might have a kid, but not now.
Yeah. Well,
so I don't know.
Well, Japan also being an enclosed country, real estate is finite.
Yeah.
So maybe that's also a factor in, or people living
like
with
finances,
living with their parents, going back, more so like multi-generational, families, living in the same households and stuff like that. That's probably causing the low, I don't know, birth rate or what. But
Because, I mean, I can even argue too, right, about your point that maybe prostitution is a factor. The other way I can, play devil's advocate is you look at United States. Prostitution is pretty much forbidden here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it exists, but
Sure.
it's taboo. Like, it is
Right.
not openly accepted like Japan. But my generation is more reluctant to have kids because it's so damn expensive.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if the economic cost of living is what's really preventing societies like Japan and Korea, or even Korea, from, hey, let's have 2 to 3 kids because let's have a big family too. We're like, damn, I can't have 2 to 3 kids because rent here is almost like half of my paycheck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, rent in Tokyo is, crazy high compared to,
It is. Well, it's interesting, right? Because right now the yen is trading around, so $1 is around 150 yen, give or take.
So
And so the historical average back from 2013 to 2019 was around like 113, like 114.
Sure.
So I wonder, last time I looked, I believe the minimum wage in terms of yen was 1,000 yen, which is equivalent to like $10 $10 per hour if you were to convert it back in United States dollar, give or take, minus some math here.
It'll be a little bit like 8 something, right?
Yeah. And so I wonder if rent has increased substantially higher above the minimum wage, or was it on par? Meaning that if minimum wage went up 15%, did rent go up 50%, or did it go up 30, 40, 50%?
I mean, if it's probably the same as, states where it did go up more than, an inflation or, the cost of living increase. So, or cost of living increase was higher than the minimum wage increase, just like it is over here.
Because I would feel, like one thing I really enjoyed about Japan was, I think that the cost of living in the United States can be higher than Japan just because we have, our transportation method is different. The United States, if you don't have a car, you're going to have a really hard time here.
Right.
So over here, if you get a car right now, you got to pay the monthly payments. You have to pay insurance. You have to pay for vehicle registration and just maintenance.
Yeah.
But in Japan, when we went there, we only pay for the tickets, the Pasmo card, the whatever transportation card.
Yeah,
and
public
so,
transportation in Japan is very well done. I mean, not that there's not public transportation in the States, but
it's not the same.
Right. The convenience, the amount of stops, the different factors. Everything's centralized in, one device to be able to pay for everything too. Helps a lot in Japan. Like you can use your cell phone, you can use it over here too to pay for a lot.
It's not the same.
Apple Pay and whatnot. But in Japan, literally, everything's centralized to the point where you just need one card and that pays for your meals, your tickets, your fares, and
it works in Japan because their system, their nation was built around the public transportation. United States was built around the cars.
Which is interesting because cars have only been a thing since, for the last 120 years.
Yeah.
Early 1900s when Ford came out, right? So before that.
Well, I guess it was by carriages, right? Like horses, I would assume.
Yeah. Horses. But then, US is just a vast, open country compared to Japan. So even back in the day, cars didn't make sense, or, back
Well, the other thing too is in the United States, if I was to take a public transportation, you don't feel as safe as when you take a transportation in Japan.
Sure.
But
it's the same thing as going to a pier in Japan versus going to pier in the States. It's vastly different from homeless and, cleanliness and
Well, that's true. But I mean, that's just a different cultural value. Because obviously United States is very, how should I say this? Yes, we're more individualistic, but we are also more free-spirited.
Sure.
While in Japan, it's more
live free or die.
Yeah, exactly. It literally is live free or die.
Don't tread on me, right? So.
Yeah. But in Japan, it's more like, everyone follows the rules because those are the rules embedded when you are a kid. Yes. And it works great. But if you are more free spirited, then man, you are going to suffer. And I feel like, I don't want to say the grass is greener on the other side because, there are some things I love the United States about, but some things I love the Japanese society about.
Would you ever live in Japan then?
I don't think so. I think my main reason is that I would never be fully accepted or embraced until.
If you were, would you though? Like if that didn't matter and you like just seeing the difference between Japan and States, what interests you more?
I would have to test drive it.
I
would have to test drive it for at least 6 months because, one thing I really like about America is that I think, contrary to what most people think, I think by far we are not very racist. Like, yeah, we have racist individuals, but I don't think we're systematic. Like there's no systematic racism.
Not like how it was back in the civil rights era, or like the early 1900s when we were the slave era and stuff like that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There are certain states that will kind of give you a hard time because
but we're not systemically racist. As you say. I think there's no laws today that
exactly right. And so to me, I feel like I know from the stories I've heard is that if you go to a different country, and if you are African American, then you are more likely to be given a second look than if you're not. But in the United States, by and large, it's like, you're Mexican, you're Asian, you're African American.
Well, nothing's surprising anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you said, it's a melting pot. All cultures are now here. Unless you go into the redneck or the out in the boonies, then everybody's.
If you go in the deep south,
sure,
right, like Alabama, like the
but
deep,
even
deep
nowadays,
south.
now.
But even Alabama is like, if you go to the capital, like
any big city,
because there are Koreans in like Alabama, Mississippi, Missouri, like
imagine anywhere in the States now
there's like a lot of Cambodians too in like Boston, Massachusetts, right, and even Texas is now becoming more blue, because everyone's going to Austin. And so I feel like, United States is not perfect, but it could be a lot worse. Yeah. Right.
But I mean, for you, if you go to Japan, you can pass.
I go to Japan,
you can pass off a Japanese. So,
it's funny because when I went there, someone actually tried to speak to me in Japanese, and I'm like, I'm Korean, like I don't speak Japanese, But I guess Korean is kind of like their second language because there's quite a few number of Japanese who speak Korean, and I've actually interacted with them like, hey, I need to get to here, or I need help ordering from my menu.
Well, surprisingly, Korea and Japan is very close together by flight, right? It's like
only like an hour.
Yeah. So I mean,
like there was actually a restaurant I went where the waitress was actually Korean.
Yeah.
So like you could tell, right? You could just by me like looking and interacting with her, it's like, you're not Japanese, you're 100% Korean.
Yeah.
It just gave it away, but if I was to live there,
what's the thing you'll struggle the most with?
The language. I think the biggest thing would be communication, because I would have a hard time putting a filter on myself.
Filter on yourself, mean in what way?
So I like to tease people.
Sure.
I like to break their balls.
In Japan,
I like to break their balls.
But I mean, between friends, it's still okay thing in Japan, right? It's when you're in a formal setting or work environment, stuff like that, then you have to be respectful. But between friends, you still break your balls all the time.
So
or at least I did when I.
Let's say I'm between with Japanese friends. How much can I break their balls and get away with it?
I would say just as much in the States.
If
you're good friends. If you're doing it to strangers, like in the States, it can still be passable, right? You're just joshing around,
Yeah.
But in Japan, you don't joking around with somebody that you don't know can
Because I feel like a lot of the contextual signs that the Japanese people might place, I'll miss it. Now, granted, I might just need to get used to it, like if I live there and stuff. But I feel like I would just kind of like, maybe like I'll take it too much at face value when.
Well, yeah, you definitely don't want to be pushing people's buttons in Japan. Like everybody keeps their heads down. Live their own life. Don't try to bother others. And when you do, I don't know if there's a famous guy that in Japan, or he was just arrested in Japan. He was doing IRL streaming, where he would just go up to random Japanese people and start harassing them.
Logan Paul?
No, not Logan Paul. I forgot what his name. He was I think he was black. Yeah, Somali, Johnny Somali.
Wait, what did he do?
He would go on. I mean, the reason he got arrested at the very end was because he was trespassing. But before that, he would go like on public train stations and just like say Hiroshima to like the guy.
So he was egging people
on, just trying to like get a reaction out of them. But he was a YouTube streamer. But then what ended up happening?
He was American.
American, yeah. Or
Yeah.
I don't know if he was American, but
If you had to guess.
probably. I mean, he was
Yeah.
doing very American.
That sounds like an American thing to do.
childish things, you know.
Yeah, that
Americans would
sounds
do.
like an American thing to
But
do.
what happened was he fled the country at one point because he started noticing Japanese police tailing him.
Mm-hmm.
So he got a little scared. So he left the country for a little bit, then came back, and then I mean, because you know all his viewers only wanted to watch him if he was doing that stuff in Japan. So when he came back, he decided to go do one more thing, trespass onto a construction place.
Yeah.
And the day after that, he got arrested because he got tailed by the police. But when police arrest you in Japan, they have a 90% conviction rate. So he
90?
90% because they're telling you for all this time because they're collecting evidence. So he probably had police tailing him for like the whole time he was arresting.
So
people.
how does Japanese judicial system work?
I don't know how it works, but the punishment is pretty extreme.
So is it the judge who hears the evidence and they're the ones who are pretty much the jury? Like, is it the judge?
No, I'm sure there's more of a panel. There probably is a jury panel and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because that's too much power in one person's hand.
Yeah.
Right, in Japan, because then you don't need evidentiary or anything. It's just up to the judge.
Because in Korea, from what I remember, you have the district or you have the prosecuting attorney and you have the defendant's attorney, the defending lawyer.
Sure.
But unlike the United States, all they have is a panel of judges. And the judges are the ones who review the evidence, who decide like if you're guilty or not. And then they're the ones who pass down the sentence.
So the judges are like juries?
Yes.
Okay.
And so unlike the United States, where in the United States, the judge pretty much acts like a neutral party where they just make sure the laws are fairly applied, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
And the jury is the one who decides if they're guilty. And then the judge decides the sentence. In South Korea, the judge acts like both parties.
Interesting. But it's still a panel of judges, not just one judge?
Correct. I think this is only from like what I've seen, but I think it's like 3 or 4 or 5 judges, depending on the cases, I believe.
Yeah.
I could be like completely off on the details, but that's generally what I remember. Now, I could be wrong. I think there may be a panel, but it just seems like the judge is the one who makes all the ruling calls. But I gotta fact check myself on that one. But I don't know if Japan is the same way.
I mean, I only know from like watching Japanese animes and stuff, but they do have like a very famous.
They have a panel.
Very famous, I guess, jury, like a prosecutor and defendant anime, and that one just like they do everything in the American court system. So I'm assuming it's the same. But I mean, this is anime talk, so
yeah.
not everything's always
Like,
translatable.
how harsh was the sentence? Like, did he get?
So he for trespassing in a construction area, but because of all his priors added up to this, I think he got like 5 years.
5 years for trespassing?
Correct. And,
wow.
And you don't want to be in jail in Japan. It's like solitary confinement for just like
solitary. So you don't. It's not like just Gen Pop where we're with other inmates.
Depending on what you did, but for him, I hear he's going through like solitary confinement just to make an example out of him.
Oh, I believe that. So
and then your
I
sleeping conditions, you're like sleeping on like stone beds with like it's like you don't want to go to jail in Japan. Like if you thought jail in the States is harsh,
I've heard that jail in the United States is not that bad.
Yeah, compared to other jails out in the world, kind of thing. But I mean, people always say our jails are pretty harsh. The people, the progressive people in the States, that want to release criminals or release small time offenders and stuff like that.
So he got 5 years. When was this?
This was maybe last year.
Oh, dude, that guy got 4 more years to go.
Yes, if he gets released, on a timely manner.
So did they do like probation and stuff, or
that? I don't know that much about his case to know that much, but I just brought him as an example because he's the most recent person that went to jail in Japan.
5 years. But most likely it's because they were trying to make an example.
Mm-hmm. Very much
because
so.
If it was just a regular trespassing.
After he got arrested, all the people that were doing IRL streaming in Japan that weren't Japanese stopped for a little bit. I don't know if you picked it up, but everybody just said, "Oh man, we don't want to."
I never understood. This is why I feel like, dude, you're not in America. You're in another sovereign country. Just because you're an American citizen, it does not mean like Uncle Sam is going to come save you.
Or the same rights don't apply in other countries.
Yeah.
Just because you have.
Yeah, exactly. Like you think like your freedom of speech your like First Amendment is going to apply to Japan? No.
I mean, what was the most famous incident in North Korea where the guy, I don't know, I think he stole like a poster or something from like
Oh, yeah, it was like some American tourist. It's some white guy. He went to, I guess, he went on a tour to North Korea, and in his room, they have a poster of Kim Jong-un, and he took it, and they found out, and they kept him in prison.
Yeah.
And they released him just before his health really went bad.
He died, right?
And he died on the way to the United States because, and that's the only reason North Korea released him, because they did not want to be responsible
for his death
during their custody.
But they were still responsible for his death.
Oh, I mean, they led him to that state,
right?
You know,
right? Just for stealing a poster too.
Yeah, and so this is why I tell people, it's like, one, why would you go to North Korea? Like, what's in a totalitarian state that's so interesting to you? You think that they don't put cameras in the room? 100% they put cameras in everywhere.
Yeah, surveillance state for sure.
I'm South Korean by birth. I may be American citizen. I bet you they'll jail my ass. They'll find a reason because they think like, oh, you're South Korean. You know, we can try to pry some information. It's not unheard of, you know?
Really? They kidnap all the time in Korea for between South and North?
I would not roll the dice if I was, I would not roll the dice to go to North Korea. Because, you know, to go to North Korea as a tourist, you have to go through China.
I hear it's a beautiful country.
Yeah, well, you tell me how it goes, and then I'm not going to roll the dice. Like, there are certain countries I would just not go.
Right,
like,
right. I mean, wasn't there like a story of a couple that went like backpacking in one of the Syria or one of those problematic countries, and then they just got...
I don't even know where the ending is, but let me guess. They got kidnapped and they got held for ransom money.
They were biking on a road, and these cars drove by them. I guess they were in a terrorist state. The cars did a U-turn. After they passed them by, the cars made a U-turn, came back, and ran them down.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I am not... You know, this reminds me of two stories. So the first story is my friend. He's Syrian. And... he went back to Syria with his sister. And I don't know if you know about Syria, but they're very like...
It may have not been Syria, by the way. I just named a random country.
Yeah. No, my friend is Syrian.
Okay.
But, you know, Syria is a very like, yeah, there's some Christians, but it's predominantly like a Muslim country, right? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, yeah, you don't, you know, Muslims don't like show body. They don't show skin, you know, wear the hijab and all that. Right, yeah. You know, they cover their woman head to toe.
Yeah.
But it's hot. It's, you know, it's a fucking desert.
Mm-hmm.
And so his sister was like, you know what? They need to do laundry. And she wears shorts and like tank tops or whatever. And she's going there. But the men would stop and stare. They would just like stop. Like they would just driving. They would stop and they would just like look at her, like uncomfortably stare because they never seen that before.
Sure.
And then, you know, her family would be like, yeah, hey, you should cover up. And she's like, no, like, I'm going to do what I want. And I'm just like, dude, this is not the time and place to rep LA.
Yeah. Don't be like, you know.
Yeah. And even her brother was like, dude, come on. Like, this is not your city. Like, what are you doing?
Like, it's like main character syndrome where like, nothing bad can happen to me. Like, I can just do like, what I want.
No,
what I
bro.
do.
Like, this is Syria. Like, yeah, this was like, I don't know when, but like.
Right. Respect other countries. And,
like, know the context of where you are,
exactly.
Man.
Like, if you go to Japan, don't fucking smoke weed there because you can go to jail for like 20 years for just...
I heard they kind of got a little more loosened up. Is that...
Have they? I don't know.
No? Is this still the case?
Yes. They still treat marijuana as a hard...
I know Singapore is pretty up there with like very like strict laws.
But synthetic drug use is widely used in Japan just because of that. They're like, even if you get caught using synthetic, because it's a synthetic drug, you don't get jailed if you were using marijuana, even though the synthetic is probably more dangerous for you, which is
probably is like,
but it is more dangerous than you because it's synthetic versus, you know, natural, you know, weed.
But I mean, like, are we talking like meth, fentanyl? Like, is that what we're talking about?
Not that extreme. It's like synthetic weed, like people that want to get that feeling. But yeah,
I don't know. I feel like.
But yes, respect countries when you go visit.
I mean, that should be a given,
yes,
right? But it just a lot of people kind of have like,
unless you come to the States, then you can fuck America, right? Everyone's like,
yeah. I mean, I feel like most people who come to the United States are very respectful.
Yeah,
by and large.
Are they? Well, maybe the people that come here, not the people that live here.
well, people who live here have a very warped sense, right? Because a lot of people who live here, especially the newer generation, they feel like everything that's wrong with the world is at America's fault.
Right. America bad.
And I'm like, I don't buy that view. You know, I'm like, yeah, we're not perfect. We've done some things, but I think our track record by and large is we're progressing in the right way. I think if I had to rate America, I think we're doing pretty good.
Would you rate America as the best country in the world?
In what, just overall, or
in overall metrics, I guess. I think so. I would America, just because of our First Amendment, freedom of speech. Not necessarily our Second Amendment, even though I think the Second Amendment's pretty important, but not a lot of people agree on that. But I think freedom of speech and I don't know, just the fact that freedom of speech that we have in a lot of countries don't, I think that makes
I would say yes, but that's only because I have two experiences, right? I've only been to two countries, United States and Japan.
But you know about other countries. And
I know about other countries.
like, would you ever live any country in South America?
No.
Right.
But I could say the same thing about Europe, right? Like, well, maybe Europe is nice. But this is my point. I don't like to take other people's what I hear from other people as the final say. I would like to experience it myself just to see. Now, I am pretty sure without going there, like North Korea is not good.
Sure. Well, yeah.
Like, I don't need to be a genius to go that far, right? But I wonder, right? Because you do hear things like, oh, let's just take, I don't know, Mexico. Like, is Mexico as bad as they say it is?
Probably
maybe
not
it
as
is,
much,
but
probably not
maybe
as much
not.
as, you know, they hype it up to be.
So it makes you wonder.
They
I don't
definitely
know.
have a cartel problem, but
They do, but to what degree is it blown out of proportion, or what degree is it true?
Right.
I have no clue.
Yeah,
you know,
because I mean, Japan has a yakuza problem too, but you see Japan as a very safe country versus Mexico, where you see as like a quote unquote dangerous country, even though the problem is the same, right? Yakuzas and cartels are not that different.
But would you say that Yakuza on the surface level seems safer, but just because the crimes are not as reported?
I think so, yeah. On the surface level, Yakuzas will only retaliate or mess with you if you don't hold up your side of the bargain for whatever contract you guys are in.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, the Yakuzas, be surprised, are very respectful in a certain sense. You know, they have their system and they don't break from that. Versus cartels, I feel like they will sometimes, you know, not abide by their system of how they should be, you know, because I'm sure they have a contract with the police in Mexico as well, just how the Yakuza have a contract with police in Japan. But I feel like they do more shady stuff in Mexico.
I feel like it goes back to the cultural differences, right? Where in Japan, there's a hierarchy. So I feel like even if you are a delinquent or a Yakuza or a gang member, you're going to respect the hierarchy to a certain degree. Yeah. Maybe not fully, but because the United States were so free-spirited, even the violence is free-spirited. Like, some people will kind of like, hey, if you're not part of the game, then they're not going to mess with civilians. Yeah. But some people just has violence with no regards. Sure. You know? So I think it just definitely the cultural and societal value is just different. But I don't know if so to answer your earlier question, I would say America is the best country in my experience. That's my answer for now.
I agree.
Would I live in Japan?
Not
only if I was married to a Japanese citizen. I feel like that's really the only way to
so
get
any
ahead.
Country you'll live in there if you're married to a citizen.
I think that's the best way. Yeah. I feel like United States is one of the rare countries where if you are not married to a U.S. citizen, you could still do fine.
Right, because the pathway to citizenship is easier in the U.S. than any other country.
And we've heard so many immigrant stories where they succeeded. Sure. Like
American dream is still a thing, right?
Exactly, right? But you don't hear about that in Japan.
Right.
There's no Japan dream for immigrants.
Right, because it's very hard to get in the corporate world as a foreigner, unless you're in a foreign corporation.
That always blew my mind because like you would, and I understand it goes back to the whole like, well, you know, United States is very merit based, Japan is very hierarchy based, plus other factors. But if I was a Japanese corporation and I wanted to maximize my productivity, efficiency, and revenue, I would hire the talents regardless of their ethnicity. But I also know this is my American mind perception talking right now. So maybe they're saying, you know what, life isn't always about, like, I guess to their eye, it's about being balanced, you know? But it's just, I don't know. I guess I have a hard time wrapping my head around that because, you know, I'm very US centric.
Sure.
You know, it's like, dude, why wouldn't you take advantage of it? Like, we would, but I guess it's just different. Like, I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Japan's very, I mean, yeah, being a national country, like acceptance is something in Japan that, you know, that's different from, you know, the US and how we accept, you know, anything or
So-
we're conditioned to accept everything, I want to say.
Would you rather retire in Japan or retire in the United States?
For me, I can go both ways just because I'm, you know, I was born in Japan,
Yeah.
but lived most of my life in the States. I think I will be accepted in Japan if I was to go work there just because I can speak Japanese fluently, read, write, you know, if I speak it, you know, people on the phone, they don't know if I'm, you know, Japanese or not.
Yeah.
So for me, the convenience, I wouldn't mind retiring in Japan just because I think it's more a peaceful society. And
I feel like there's definitely a more calmer vibe there.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and it's a socialist country. So when I'm in retirement age, there'll be more communities that will help each other out. Versus here, if you don't have Medicare, you know, if you don't have Social Security.
So you know, in the United States, we got Social Security.
Yeah.
Does Japan have something like that?
Yeah, there's a safety net in there, but I don't think you have to enroll or apply or anything like that. It's automatic kind of thing.
Because I know a friend of ours, she was saying that you pay into this pension fund, like it's pretty much like their version of Social Security. But she, you know, in the United States, we only pay it when we have taxable wages.
Yeah.
She's saying that even if you don't have any income, you still need to pay into it. And so I wonder, would that be better? Would society in Japan be better if they were to adopt our Social Security method where you were only paying for it when you have living, like, taxable wages? Because I feel like that'll be a very strong burden when you don't have income. Because how are you going to pay when you don't have money?
True.
Like, maybe I'm mixing some context from what she was saying, but to me, it just, I don't know. I feel like I'm missing like some of the picture here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know too much about that aspect of Japan to be able to give any kind of, you know, concrete answers or anything. But I mean, knowing that my dad is over there right now and he was able to, you know, have health issues and be able to go use like the medical system without having health insurance there.
So did he pay out of pocket?
No, it was free. So I mean, so even as a non citizen, they still give healthcare to.
Really? So who picks up the bill?
It's whatever tax system that they have in Japan. It's a very socialist. You know, everybody gets something kind of thing.
I mean, I guess the United States does.
But because it's a small country, I think it works. If you were to apply,
their population 100 million.
Actually, it's pretty close to the States now that I think about it. But
because United States last time I looked was close to
400,
360,
like 400 million
or 400.
Well,
so
I mean, yeah.
What's Japan now?
I think Japan is like 200 or something, or 150.
That's a dense population
for the country size.
Because, you know, if you look at the landmass of Japan, it's like California, Oregon, and Washington.
Let me look up what the population of Japan is right now.
But
because I feel like it's up there, but
you know, I feel like, you know, when I went to Japan, there was a lot of people in Tokyo. Like Osaka was busy.
125 million.
125. So I mean, that's still a lot.
So half of us, but
yeah, that's still a lot. But I don't know. So he didn't pay for anything? He just went in and
he may have paid, you know, basic or the baseline, which is, you know, not something that's going to break your bank, especially because he had, you know, MRI done and everything. And yeah.
What did he say anything about his experience?
No, but if I had to guess, I think the care over here is better than the care over there. Just because
we should ask him. We should bring him on one time and ask him.
Yeah, he's coming in next month. So
Yeah, we should talk to him about it.
Yeah.
Because, I've heard something similar, right? Where they say, oh, proponents of universal healthcare will say, well, if you look at Canada, if you look at these countries.
Well, there's the 3-pillar system, right? To any healthcare. You can only have 2 of
quality, cost, and
quality, cost, and time.
Like speed.
Yeah, how fast you get the service.
Yeah.
The quality and how much it costs. So you can only have 2 of the 3.
That makes sense.
So we have
the quality, but we have the speed, but we don't have the cost.
So it's very expensive for us. So we don't have the cheap pillar, which other, like Canada has a cheap pillar.
Yeah.
It has the quality maybe, but the time it takes to get it is really low.
Yeah. So you pretty much read my. Yeah.
So if you have a broken leg, it takes, 6 to 5 months to get a treatment.
And that's what people were complaining. It's like, yeah, Canada may be free, but if I want to see my doctor about something, it takes months.
Yeah.
But United States, like, hey, if you got the money, you could cut the line. You pretty much can pay to cut.
Right. So a lot of people from Canada will come down to the States to get specialized healthcare.
Yeah.
Or specialized doctors because we have the most specialized doctors in the world, I think, here in the United States.
Well, say what you want about America, we are the front running in terms of medical advances. Like, where does Ozempic come from?
Right.
United States.
Sure.
It's funny because Ozempic wasn't even used for weight loss. It was meant for diabetic patients.
Right.
But it's like Viagra, right? You found a different use for your drugs because Viagra was actually meant for some other use. And then it was like, oh, it works for erectile dysfunction.
I didn't. So Viagra was actually for something else before.
So originally when Viagra was created, it wasn't meant for penile issues. It was actually for heart issues, I think. But they found out like, hey, it raises your blood, which it floods blood into your penis or something. So it works. So it's kind of like, it's a happy accident.
Penis drug, sure.
And it's funny because, this is why I feel like a lot of people, America is not perfect, but it's a capitalistic society where if there's demand for it, we will find a solution.
Yeah.
And so it's like, people say, well, what about cancer? Well, people care more about erectile dysfunction because we still put money into it, right?
Yeah. I mean, my conspiracy mind says that we'll never cure cancer just because.
You don't think so?
I mean,
I feel like if you found the cure to cancer and you patent it for 20, 25 years, because that's what U.S. court will give you, you could make a lot of money.
You as an individual, but the medical industrial complex would not allow that because they make a lot of money on cancer patients.
I don't know. I guess I disagree with you because there's so much money being poured into studies after studies for trying to find a cancer.
No, I'm not saying they're not trying to find trying to find the.
Oh, you think it's just a front? Like it's just a smoke screen? Like they're just saying that they're doing it, but
because
they don't really want to.
We always want the cure for cancer, so that's they have to say that to the people, but they really don't want to, or at least my opinion is they don't want to find a cure for cancer because treating a patient will
like
net
you can
them more
milk
money
the patient for years.
Right. You can build them for years rather than a person die off or be cured from cancer. They don't need your treatment no more.
I don't know. Maybe you're right, but I just feel like, if you say, hey, because every cancer is different too, right?
Yeah.
So if you got a cure for one cancer, it's like, man, and you lock it down for 20, 25 years because cancer will always be there. Like just because you cure one patient doesn't mean you might not get it. Future generations will get it. So I feel like if you found a cure for cancer, you can easily be $1 trillion company.
Well, let me ask you this. Has our medical science have gone up since the last 100 years or has it gone down? Technology behind, medical care. It has to have gone up, right? Obviously.
I feel like I want to say it has gone up, but it's gone up in areas where it's not the most productive use of our time and resources.
Okay.
So for example, it's gone up in areas like erectile dysfunction. It's gone up in areas like hair loss. It's gone up in areas like weight loss.
Sure.
But it didn't go up in areas where how do you treat cardiovascular disease? How do you treat cancer? How do you treat well,
maybe not how do you treat cancer, but at least
it didn't go into areas more like preventive care, right? Because we are a society built on treating the thing, but not telling our people like, hey, you know what? You don't need to take this drug like statin for your cholesterol if you lost that 40 pounds.
Right.
You know, like,
well, because people want the magic drug, right? They want the quick fix without having put in the effort.
It blows my mind that how, and I feel like this is a US thing. I don't know if Japan is different. Like if maybe Japan is more willing to listen to the authorities because that's in their.
Well, Japan just doesn't have fat people to begin with since they're always walking around.
Well, they do a lot of walking.
They do a lot of walking.
And because when we went there, we averaged 10,000 steps a day.
Right. But we also went to like hiking and, you know, going to like, you know, shrines on top of mountains.
That's true too. Which you still didn't take pictures of all the foxes.
I tried. It was
tried.
It was 1,000 fox shrine.
You gave up after like 30.
Why? I gave up after we went to the top, and then coming back down, we saw that there was just as many foxes coming down. And I'm like, no, I'm done.
But you know, just going back to it, it's just America has. I shouldn't say America. Maybe it's just people.
Let me just get to the point that why I asked you. If, if medical has gone up. If it has gone up, don't you find it weird that cancer rates have gone up as well?
But I could also argue that's because now we're just screening people more.
Sure.
While 30 years ago we didn't.
But people that died of cancer still died of cancer, right?
Yes.
Back in the day.
Yes. But we didn't know if they died from cancer or some other thing. So we might not have diagnosed them for cancer.
I guess, but I feel like.
So I guess what I'm going is, if you had stomach cancer, but I really don't. This is outside of my realm. But let's say you had stomach cancer, but you died. But the doctors back then didn't know a thing about stomach cancer. Mm-hmm. They might have said, oh, you died from something else, like other complications unknown.
Right, but autopsies should have been still autopsies. So tumors would have been found just as easily. Growth, because that's what cancer is, right? It's
but then maybe back then they didn't know, like, oh, this is what we're looking at. Maybe that is a tumor.
But do you agree cancer rates have skyrocketed in the last 20 years, 30 years?
Yes.
Compared to what it was in maybe the 50s or...
Yeah.
What's the cause of that in your...
I would say initially it's two things. Diet and more screening.
Yeah. Diet for sure. I agree.
Because we're just too fat as a nation. We are... Like, I don't know what the cancer rate is for Japan versus United States, but I would assume that United States would be higher because we have more obese people. We're just too fat as a nation. And maybe because we're just screening people more. I don't know. Yeah, that'll be my guess.
Right. And this is why I say the medical industry out there isn't there to cure. It's to treat. Because if that was the case, they would have banned sugar and all the cancer-causing highly, what's the word? Processed food.
Oh, like ultra-processed?
Ultra-processed.
Like fast food. Yeah. I mean...
If they were to, But
then that's like two different industries, right? Because you got the food industry and then the medical industry.
Right, so they're fighting against each other. The food industry also doesn't want, their companies to shut down, like the sugar industry and whatnot. Like all food out there has sugar in it nowadays.
Well, that's how you get it tasty.
That's how it's addictive, highly addictive too.
But Japanese people, they put a lot of sugar in their food.
They do.
They actually do.
It's weird. So... Is it because they walk so much that they were still healthy, or the obesity level is different, or is it different kind of refined sugars, or not as processed?
I'm going to go on a limb and say, at the end of the day, it's about weight control. If you're fat, it's going to cause more complications to you. Like there's too many studies that have shown that what has the highest impact on your health has to do with caloric control and weight control. Mm-hmm. If you're fat, you're just going to have more complications. If you lose the weight, everything, LDL risk, cardiovascular risk, diabetic risk, everything goes down as you shed the pound.
Sure.
And so Japanese people just walk. They walk everywhere and their portions are damn small. You know, when I went to McDonald's and I asked for a large, that's America small. Right. Like that is not the same.
There is, you can't get any bigger than that.
Yeah.
Too.
And
I don't think you get free refills in Japan.
Well, you have to keip asking them, and you feel guilty after the second time.
They don't have soda machines just out in the open.
No, they don't.
They have vending machines where you can buy all these cans, but
and you go up the third time, they just like oh, I kind of feel bad. Like that Japanese guilt is like working.
Can I get an American size, please? Just
no, seriously, because so we went to a Korean barbecue. You didn't go this year with us, but we went to a Korean barbecue. Japanese barbecue, and we got all you can drink combo set with the meat.
Yeah.
and they had this really good peach drink, but the cup was so damn small, and like we had like you could literally finish it because we're Americans, you know, we're fat. We finish it in like 5 seconds, yeah. And then like you know you flag the waitress like, oh,
That's
you know,
all you
can I get
drink,
another
right?
one?
I'm
Yeah,
trying to drink all I can.
and then she's like, oh. That's so fast. I'm like, I mean, you know, like we're Americans, you know.
What the sign says.
Yeah,
All you
like
can
this is
drink, all
kind
you
of
can
small. Like, can you just bring us 3 cups? Like, but
Yeah, definitely portion is
small.
Yeah, why Americans over here.
But I feel like that's why the food is so good too, because like it's small and they just have better quality control. Because you know when you're making a mass bunch, you just can't do it as well.
Yeah, well, if you're not good, or if your restaurant quality isn't great because of the competition, then you won't survive in Japan. So it's like, and because of the community kind of aspect, like you don't want a bad restaurant community. So like you'll get the shaming from the community if you have a bad restaurant in there too. So
I feel like the other reason Japanese foods are so good, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, where you just stay with the company. It's like an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So you're staying there for years.
Never change, yeah.
Yeah, and so you just keep honing your skills.
Is always the same, yeah.
Exactly. But you know, in America, like you may work at a restaurant for 2 years. You're always having this rotating
You're
doors.
always changing. Yeah. There's no loyalty or
yeah, and you lose a lot of that institutional knowledge, which is a premium. And so, like, you know, I think that's one thing I admire about like the Japanese work culture is like, yeah, the work-life balance isn't there, but man, when you know something and you do it really well, it shows in the final results. Like we went to a retail store and then I was buying a gift and I told the lady like, oh, this is a gift, you know, and then she did like a really nice wrapping, like, you know, with the bow and everything was really clean and pristine. And I was like, you don't see that in the States.
Well, yeah, service is a thing in Japan.
It's very service because I believe that Japanese takes, it kind of goes back to the harmony aspect where it's not just you buying the product, it's from your experience when you enter to when you leave.
And you know what's funny? They don't expect tip in Japan.
Goddamn tip.
You get all that service and they don't expect tip.
You know,
versus here, you don't get no service, but they expect all the tip.
Tipping culture is such a trigger for me because like
well, I used to be a server, so I can't agree with you there. Well, since that's how I was making most of my money.
So this is my take. I don't understand why we would tip in certain situations, but we don't tip in other situations.
What's an example?
So, for example, in a full service restaurant, we would tip.
Sure.
But
fast food,
a fast food, you don't tip.
Right.
Now, some people will say, well, you know.
Nowadays, you're starting to see, you know, all these, you know, kiosks or whatever with tipping options at fast food places too.
Well, so here's a little side tangent. Do you know why? You know, I think the biggest kiosk one is Clover, Square, and there was a third one I forgot. But do you know why all these tablets have been showing more tip lately?
Why?
Because they get a surcharge off of that tip. So the companies, they'll get 2% of your revenue, right? Well, I believe the tip is included, so it encourages you to tip, so they get more revenue.
So they're just pushing into all kiosks.
Goddamn technology. This is. I mean, someone should fact check me, but I'm 100% sure this is the case.
I mean, I don't.
Greedy
why
fucks.
Not? Why not have that option if people are accustomed to tipping anyways, right?
It's so to me, it's like.
But yeah, you shouldn't be tipping everything.
No, you shouldn't. And so like you don't tip in. So you would tip a barber, but you don't tip a mechanic.
It's true. There's some people that do tip mechanics, but it's not the traditional norm.
Yeah, but you don't tip a lawyer and you don't tip a doctor because they make too much money.
Right. They're
So like
to them tipping like, you know, what is this $10 I'm going to do with?
Yeah, but then if I took the same, so to me it's like I understand when we tip, I get that. I'm just saying that the rules are very arbitrary.
Well, do you know why in Japan tipping is, I guess, frowned upon?
Is it because it makes the company look bad? Like they're not paying their employees enough?
That and you as a tipper is flaunting that you have more money or you're showcasing.
Is that the reason?
That's one of the reasons why it's frowned upon.
But is that the reason in other countries too?
Because I don't know about other countries, but Japan, that's the case.
Japan specifically. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing I love about Japan is because every time I go to a restaurant, it's not every place has had tremendous, like exceptional service, but the service has always been above the average, right?
Yeah.
In the United States, if I even get above average, I'm like already impressed because most places is at average.
Sure.
you know? And don't get me wrong, I cannot blame the waiters or the waitress if my food doesn't come out right or if something happens because it's outside of their control. I cannot ding them for that. But at the same time, it makes it harder for me to give them a good tip because it's like, well, my whole experience has been a negative, you know?
I mean, it became such a norm in the States that, you know, they just expect tip nowadays.
I don't know.
Without, you know,
because, you know, I pay $50 for my haircut.
Yeah.
Am I still expected?
That's expensive haircut, by the way.
No, that's what I'm saying. Dude, haircuts have gone up. Every single barber I've seen, the lowest one I've seen, a good one, is now 35 to 40 range. I can go to a cheap Chinese place for like $15, but I did not like them.
Yeah.
not because they're Chinese, just because like I don't like the quality of the cut.
Sure. Right.
And so it's like, well, if I'm paying 50, should I still be expected to tip? You know, my wife says, oh, you should still tip. I'm like, on the $50 haircut? Bitch, you crazy. Like, I am not tipping on the $50 haircut. Well, I guess it depends
how much I mean, because they're charging you 50, they may be still making the same much as if they were, you know, working at a place that charges you like a $20 haircut, right? So that's why you tip those, you know, regardless of how much your haircut costs, it's how much they're taking home as a wage that you feel obligated or not to tip.
It goes but it goes back to what I'm saying. We tip a barber, but we don't tip a mechanic.
Yeah.
We tip a server, but not the fast food. But we don't tip the bagger at the grocery store. A lot of arbitrary rules here.
It is.
You know, and I get it, right? I'm not saying I'm one of those people who don't tip. I will tip. I'm more critical when I tip now because. So
that Reservoir Dog line resonates with you?
Which one? Because I know there's a whole scene about it.
The coffee scene, obviously. Where
I'm not as hardcore as Mr. Pink.
Okay.
Because I think, you know.
You know, somebody used that quote on me as when I was a server, the reason that they don't tip. But
they're being cunts on purpose.
They were. They came 2 days in a row to prove a point. And I kicked them out the second time. Well, we also have the right to not serve you, as it says on the sign right here. So
what do you think is expected? 10%? 15%? My rule of thumb is if you do a bad service, I'm going to give you 0 to 10. If you do good, 15.
Depends on the length of the service, right? If it's like a server, you know, restaurant where they're waiting on you for like an hour and a half, then 20%, 22%.
Okay.
But if it's like a service where they're like, you know, I don't know, like retail or anything, or like if you were to tip in those kind of areas, then on like 10%, 5% is the lower bound that I'll tip.
So something like a buffet would be like a 10%.
Yeah, because they're only, you know, picking up your dirty plates. They're not taking your order. They're not, you know, making sure, you know, your food came out good. They're not doing that extra service. So, So definitely differences in how much service you're receiving is how much I tip.
So for me, if I go to a ramen shop, I might tip them 10%, right? Because, you know, like they'll take my order, they'll bring the food, and that's about the extent of it. But if I go to a fancy steakhouse, like I've been to Arthur J with my family recently, and the service was very exceptional, right? From the moment we sat down to the end, the service was good, our waiter was good and everything. And I was more than glad to give them 30% on the $1,000 bills, right? Because the service provided was very good. It's what I was expecting, but he went above and beyond that. Okay. And so to me, it's like,
So you actually tip 30% when some people go above and beyond.
Yeah.
So I don't even go that high.
I tip 30% when I feel like, okay, you know what? You made this experience very enjoyable for me. I'm going to give you a premium because I want the market to reward you and to encourage that kind of behavior. Yeah. But if I go to El Torito and they are literally just dropping the food and they get my order wrong, I am not giving you above 10%.
Right.
You did the bare minimum. You get the bare minimum.
Yeah, I guess because as a former server, I just feel more inclined to give back, I guess.
Well, that's how my dad feels, because my dad is a restaurant owner.
Yeah. So when you're in the service industry at one point,
because he said the same thing.
You just know that's your livelihood.
Yes, right? That's what he said. He was like, even if they did a bad job, he still gives 15%. Yeah. But I'm like,
my standards just give 20 if I'm at it. Unless they really, really there to like mess up my day. Then
would you tip on takeout? I'm like, but see, that's the thing, right? Some people tip on takeout, but I don't tip on takeout because you're not giving the full service experience.
Yeah, but I mean,
Because how is that different from fast food?
If they bag it nicely, give it all your condiments, you know.
But that's the same thing as fast food.
Sure. I mean, that's their job, right? That's what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But again, coming from a service background, it's just my innate nature to
so to me, it's like
to the tipping, I guess.
If you're doing takeout, you don't get tip. If I'm doing sit down, you will get tip.
Right.
And even with the sit down, it's like, okay, there's bad, average, exceptional. And exceptional is like.
Did I ever tell you my grandma's strategy on tipping?
Which one is this one?
This is so the way that she'll tip, and when the server first comes to introduce himself or herself, right? She has a stack of dollars on the table. She goes, "This is your tip. Every time you mess up, I take $1 away." She tells us to the server at the start.
So there's food here. She just has a stack of ones.
She'll like $20, 20 ones, because that's, typically 20% on $100.
Is this your Mormon side?
This is my Mormon.
Oh, I love
side.
her already. She's like, "Oh, you forgot to refill my water."
After she did that once, I no longer wanted to go out and dine with her. But
what?
It was a very valuable lesson of it, because it put fear. It instilled fear in the servers.
But did she get the service she wanted? Or they didn't care?
That day, she pulled a lot of dollars, even though I don't think they deserved the dollars being pulled. But she was very just strict. I don't think she just wanted to tip in general, so she wanted an excuse not to tip. So that was her way. But she grew up in the 40s. She grew up in the 40s. Yes,
it shows. Mm-hmm. I don't know. To me, it's like, once again, it goes back to the whole. It's a societal difference, right? Japan is always about showing face. It's that harmony, that hierarchy. United States is like live free or die, right? And it's like, I get it, right? I'm not hating on either system, because, I can't hate on the system that I was born in, essentially.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can admire, I feel like one thing about United States is we can still adopt other practices and kind of be like, hey, you know what? We should be like integrated, because I don't think that tipping in and of itself is bad, but it's bad when we are still tipping on bad behavior.
Yeah.
If you are a bad server, you should not get tipped.
Well, you should get fired, theoretically, if you're a bad server.
Theoretically, right? But then if the management is not willing to fire, then we as a customer should show and vote it by saying, you know what? You're not going to make extra money. You are not getting tipped. You should change your behavior. But if she or he does not change their behavior, they will quit and go somewhere else where they will get more tip.
Right.
And so whenever I look at Japan and my experience, there are some certain times when I wanted to tip them. I was like, damn, bitch, you hustle. I want to give you tip. I know they won't accept it. But I always felt inclined to give them tip, because I was like, see, this is what I expect service to be like.
Well, I think they do accept tip from foreigners, because it's not the same stigma that they would if it's from a...
I mean, I'm not going to tip them.
Right. But they won't. It's not as insulting as a Japanese person wants to tip, here's some money,
I mean, in my head, I would like to tip them, yourself.
Because that's how they see it as, if a Japanese person was to do it to them, kind of thing. Like, oh, you're lower class to me. I don't need this money, but you can take it, kind of thing. So...
Well, I hope Japan doesn't really adopt the tipping system, because I feel like it's just...
Because service is ingrained in their culture. Like, they want to give service without the demand for it, I guess. Because
there were certain things that they did that I really appreciate. Like, we went to go buy... I think this was the year you went with us. We went to go in Hiroshima. We went to this little... takoyaki stand.
Yeah.
And a friend of ours, he bought like 3 or 4 takoyakis because he really liked it. And then the lady actually came out and gave one for free to kind of show appreciation. And I was like, see, it's like the little things like that I like,
Well, he was also eating like a typical American.
Well, I mean,
shoving it down his...
yes, but I mean,
I think it was more amusement for them. They're like, man, this guy literally devoured 10 of these. Or like, want to see me eat one more?
I think she wanted to show her appreciation for us buying a lot. It's kind of like
No, they do that. They do that though. If you like shop, a abnormal amount of things at one store, they'll give you like a freebie or a little extra,
like a gesture of goodwill.
Thank you, because they want you to come back at the same time. So
no, I mean that place was good though. Mm-hmm. But I just feel like I don't know. I mean, their food has always been good, but it's just, I think the food is good. I feel like certain of their food here in America is just as comparable to over there. Like, for example, I think our sushi is pretty comparable to theirs. Now, maybe I haven't been to the right sushi place in Japan.
Probably.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, I mean, definitely not like, the Michelin star or the well-renowned, upscale sushi restaurants.
Excluding the Michelin, but let's just say the average sushi restaurant. So if you and I were to look at a sushi place right now in the United States, and we did the same for Japan, I feel like on average, they will be both comparable. Now, maybe on the upper end, Japan
maybe California sushi restaurants, like not any sushi restaurant in the States.
Yeah, that's actually a good footnote. California specifically, because I would not expect that in Alabama,
Texas, or
it's just not the level. It's not the same.
Right.
But I think what ties it more is just that service too, because it's everything from, they're just very polite. Like when you walk into the store, they greet you, is very polite. Like I always like how Japanese are very, what's the word I'm looking for? They're very,
engaging, or
I guess engaged. Like they make it seem like they want to help you.
Right. Welcoming.
So. Yes. Welcoming is the word. Because, if you go to like, I don't know, a restaurant here or Walmart, like, yeah, they're welcoming, but you could tell like, oh, they're just saying it because it's their job.
Yeah.
You never, granted, maybe it's because I don't know their language, but at least it sounds like they want to.
No, yeah. Definitely Japanese have a very professional tone of voice versus their, at home kind of voice, very different. Like you can never find a disgruntled employee at McDonald's.
That's a good way to put it. Right. You really don't. And I feel like, they want me to be here, and then it's kind of like, damn, I want to spend my money, like swipe my card and everything, like you feel like pampered.
Right.
And like,
but that's the training that they go through in Japan versus the training that you go here working at McDonald's. Like in Japan, when you get hired at McDonald's, you actually go through the whole training course, how to welcome, how to, be,
But, even the McDonald's in Japan, like, I feel like the food tastes better.
It does.
It's just so much better. Like, I don't know what they put in that food. I don't know if it's love or quality of, like, training, I think it's just so much better.
Just doing it correctly. Like, even in the States, if the workers were to, wash the oil just as, often as you're supposed to, or make your, patties, the correct way instead of just slapping it all together. It won't come out more delicious, but we just don't have people that care just as much as people in Japan care about.
So what food, or I guess what fast food would you want to try there to compare to here? We try McDonald's.
We try McDonald's. They McDonald's have Burger King, is better there. They have Subway. They have Pizza Hut, KFC. I do want to try the KFC.
We should try KFC.
We should try.
I thought a KFC, you brought up, I don't know why I thought of this. There's 7-Elevens and convenience stores is lit.
Night and day, yeah.
It's
like if we had convenience stores over here that are anything close to the Japanese,
it's
7-Elevens.
It blows, like
But you know why they can't have nice things here that they have nice things in Japan, right?
Minorities?
Well, I mean, the crime, but if you want to associate that to a certain group, sure. But it's the crime and the theft or the burglaries are happening that they can't have nice things in the States. Like that's why you don't have vending machines out in the open States versus in Japan where you see them everywhere because they'll all be broken into here.
That's true too. I mean, it is a different society. Yeah. But like, you ever been to Eddie's World along the way to Las Vegas?
Yes.
Their food is. Have you ever tried their food?
No, I've never stopped there, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay, I think we're gonna go to Vegas next month. But when we go, I don't know if you're gonna ride with us. But when we go, we'll stop by Eddie's World because that's where the supercharger is.
Okay.
Their food is actually not bad. It's actually pretty decent food. Like it's like, I'm not saying it's like I would go there just for the food, but it's like for a gas station food. Because the standards are so low, like it's miles above, right? And I think they do some simple things very well. It's fresh, it's never frozen, and it's just the quality is there. Yeah. I'm not saying it's the highest quality ingredients, but it's just prepared well and it's just done well. And if 7-Eleven, if they didn't keep that same pizza there for like weeks on end, and they rotate it out as they should.
I actually like American 7-Eleven pizza.
Really?
Or
That's
back
disgusting.
in the day. I haven't had it for like 10 years, but back when I was
How do you like
poor,
it when you're half Japanese? What is this like?
I mean,
cognitive,
you
like,
couldn't
what?
beat, what was it, $1.50 a slice or whatever it was?
Do you like Costco pizza?
No, but at 12 in the morning, 1 in the morning, you want.
Dude, nobody likes 7-Eleven pizza.
All
Right, we're going to buy a 7-Eleven pizza and do a reaction video or something, because there's no way that 7-Eleven pizza is good.
You'll be surprised.
When was the last time you had a 7-Eleven pizza from
been about a decade, but
okay, that's 10 years ago. All right, we're gonna buy one and see how it goes. Because I'm telling you, I mean, you know this, but man, like the Family Mart, the Lawson Mart, the 7-Eleven, what else is there? I think that's about it. I mean,
those are the major ones, but
dude, they're good.
Yeah, I mean, but South Korea too, right? They're convenience stores.
Yeah, I've never been, but from the videos I've seen,
TikTok,
it looks good.
I see always people like
eating
everything in convenience store for like the last 100 days or something.
I'm pretty sure it's not healthy because it's highly processed.
Sure,
but it's fucking delicious.
Right. I mean, compared to, like you said, the American 7-Elevens.
No, seriously, because like
food marts,
like the Japanese convenience, like they got the ramen and stuff, and the onigiri or like the microwavable foods.
The prepared dinner. Yeah, anything. You can get hard alcohol too from 7-Eleven. That you can get beers over here. So,
I mean, I think we spend a lot of money.
We definitely went 7-Eleven at least every day, or a convenience store every day. It was our morning ritual, and sometimes our midnight ritual.
It was good. Yeah. It was very good.
Would you open a convenience store in the States that's like a Japanese one? And
no,
you think you'll get robbed?
My family opened a liquor store.
Right.
It's too much work.
But if you had one of those convenience stores next to an American one, the one that that has that kind of type of food will instantly be more popular, right? It
will be popular, but it would
still wouldn't work. You don't think?
I think my biggest gripe is, from my experience, it's just a different culture, because at least the Japanese people will respect certain things.
Yeah.
Over here, it's not the same.
Yeah. And freshness is a thing in Japan, where here they try to not throw.
Over here, people complain about the price, right? So it's like, they want everything cheap, but they want everything good, and they want everything fresh. And I'm like, it goes back to that 3 pillars, right? Yeah. If you want quality, well, you can only pick 3, right? Yeah, quality, cost, or time.
Yeah, something will suffer. So
yeah. So it's like, well, I can give you the quality, but it's not going to be cheap. But if you want it cheap, the quality is not going to be great. So what do you want?
Yeah.
And so from my experience, the other thing too that detracts me from opening any of those kind of business is the homeless population, because it's so damn bad in California.
Yeah, Japan, not saying that they don't have any homeless, but it's very, very rare that you see any.
Well, they keep, the homeless in Japan, they know how to keep themselves away from public eye.
Because it's a shameful thing, just like.
Yeah. And at least they clean up after themselves. Like I've seen
even the homeless people clean up.
Yes,
themselves?
I've seen a homeless person in Japan. Like they'll take away their little shed, their little cardboard, and they'll like put away their things.
Yeah,
I'm like, you don't see that in the States, because we got crackheads and meth heads.
Sure. Well, that's another thing. Drug usage, right, between the States and Japan. Like, there's not just that many drugs to be used in Japan to have those kind of degenerates and people that are just like lying in the streets, not able to hold a job and stuff like that.
Because I always hear the statistics that in the United States, a lot of homeless people, they suffer from mental illness, like let's say schizophrenia. Sure. Is that the case in Japan too?
The homeless?
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't know, since I don't know how big of a homeless population Japan even has. But if it was, I would assume it's because of schizophrenic, or mental issues. And I will want to say most of the mental issues that happen in the States is because of drugs, and even prescription drugs.
I say so too.
Yeah.
Because my initial thinking was, I don't think there's as much homeless related due to causes like Alzheimer's or schizophrenia. I think a lot of the homeless people are primarily drug use, like fentanyl, meth. Like this is what we're seeing in Portland, Oregon, right?
Yeah.
You legalize hard drug use, and this is what happened.
Right.
And the second primary group or third primary group is just people down on their luck, economic hardships,
Yeah, so not enough social nets.
Yeah, they're having a bad time.
Yeah, so communities in Japan will help, if you are out of a job or what, the community will help you, just like a religious community, in the States. But in Japan, it's just like your community will keep you on your feet if needed, kind of thing. So it's a very.
I mean, we have that too here. You know, we got like what's the Red Cross or Salvation Army. You got the local churches.
Yeah, charities. And
yeah, you got charities, and you even have like a lot of state-sponsored organization who houses homeless people, right? But to me, I really feel like the boom in recent homeless population is just the drugs, the fentanyl, the meth.
I agree.
You know, and to me, it's just I don't know what this. Well, I mean, I could think of a solution, which is like, you know, don't bring the drugs here. But
well, how are the drugs coming in?
I would say it's either coming from China. Well, if I had to say, it's coming from China and Mexico, because a lot of the raw ingredients needed to be used is coming from China.
Right.
And a lot of cartels is now moving into fentanyl production because marijuana is no longer the big booming business.
Right, because it's legal. It's legal in the States now, so they don't need to have poppy fields and whatnot.
Yeah, and in heroin, they moved away from that because meth was cheaper, and they found out even fentanyl was cheaper.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, yeah, it's crazy. But
so is legalizing a way to like, because that's
if
how.
I was to use Oregon as an example, then it is not the way to go.
But then that's what caused them to move off of marijuana, is because marijuana became legal, right? So regulations and whatnot to regulate these Schedule 1 or hard drugs, I guess, but then also border security, right? Because they're all coming through the southern border. Like even the fentanyl from China, it's coming through Mexico, even though it first comes from China, it goes to Mexico, and then comes to the southern border. So border security is.
I'm just saying,
ties one and one with
Trump promised me a wall. I didn't get my wall.
Well, I mean, what was the pushback that the wall was going to cost $50 billion and that was too much? But if we spent $50 billion on anything else, like, the homeless or, like the drug epidemic, we put a dent in it.
I think a lot of problem too with the liberal states is there was a study, I want to say Switzerland. It was one of the European countries. What the European countries did was they legalized drugs, but they said if you are a known drug addict, you must by law enroll in their rehab program. And it wasn't like legalized drugs as in, oh, you could buy drugs and shoot drugs or do whatever you want. It's like, no, it's not, that's still illegal, but you can come to our drug rehab clinic and we will give you that drug in small dosage so you can wean yourself off of it.
Right.
And so the idea was, let's not punish the user by criminalizing them, but let's rehab them. And so the intent was good and it worked for that country. But Oregon went the full liberal way to say, okay, you can use it, you can shoot it, you can buy it or whatnot, right? I don't really know the full law, but it looks like anything goes in that Portland city.
Right. I mean, Portland's where they had the autonomous zone or whatever, where they took over like a.
I thought it was Washington. Was it Oregon?
I thought it was Portland. Yeah, Portland.
It could be Oregon. Yeah, or it could be Portland. Like
I mean, Portland is what I remember. The city.
It's probably Portland.
Except my cousin was actually in that zone, and she had to flee it because at first she's like, "Oh, this is wonderful. This is great."
Wait, so she went there?
She lived there.
Wait, she lived there as it happened, or she decided to move there after it happened?
She decided to go into that community after it was set up because of the autumn.
What happened?
She probably almost got raped and decided to leave.
Are you telling me that law and order matters?
Yes, very much so.
Wait, so what was her what was her full story to that?
I mean, she's one of her cousins that has been outcasted since she's an ex-Mormon, so we don't talk to her as much, or the family doesn't talk to her as much. But I mean, at first she said everything was great because all the community is looking out for each other, growing their own stuff. We don't need outside, government or police forces to dictate whatever. But all that, utopia only lasted a week or two, and then people became natural greed. In any community is going to start growing, and then they want more for themselves, right? So without that law and order, then things became chaotic rather quickly. So. Everything starts with a good idea, but
it's as if history repeats itself.
There's a reason why,
there's a reason why
capitalism is something that we are still on instead of.
Well, there's a reason why every society like Japan or the United States have strong authorities. They have strong law enforcement, because if it didn't matter, you would think that we would naturally not need it.
Yeah.
And so I am not surprised. I mean, good thing that she didn't get raped, but clearly you would think, right, that we should not.
She's very smart too. She's like a cybersecurity
my issue with specialists is that they may be very smart in a specific domain,
right?
But common sense just goes out the window,
does, yeah.
Because it's like, you ever heard of the Nobel Prize syndrome?
No.
These are the people who attain their Nobel Prize, but then these are also the same people who espouse certain theories that was just completely wild and out the door.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correctly, one of the theories was, I believe one of the Nobel Prize scientists, and these are smart people, they believe that mega dosing on vitamin C would cure cancer or something obnoxious like that.
Okay.
Obviously, that's not the case.
Sure.
Yeah. And so you would think why would you believe that? But
because
they believe
the vitamin C industry needed a boost or something. I don't know.
Or, but it's also just thing because they're so smart, they must be right.
Right. It was appeal to authority. Or
kind of, yeah. And so it's just kind of you may be really, this is why I say, doctors or lawyers, they may be really smart, but it doesn't mean they're actually smart.
I think they're good at memorizing and following instructions. I mean, if I had to put anything into right,
you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But to me, this is why it's I feel like critical thinking is so necessary.
And it's not a lot of people have critical thinking, or being able to think critically, or outside of the box, or against the norm, or
Well, that's very true, because it's hard, right? Because to actually sit down and say okay, this is what I believe, and I want to challenge myself by playing my own devil's advocate, and so it really does shake you up, because to go against, if I was to tell myself I don't know, 2 + 2 is not 4. Something.
It would be interesting if it's not.
Huh?
It would be very interesting if it's not, right?
Yeah, it's
because I always thought about
that.
this paradox.
Yeah.
Our universe, is the way it is because 2 + 2 = 4. But what if that's not the case, and we created this world model off of that formula? But
no, exactly. And so, but then you actually have to sit down, think about it for a moment, and think critically about it, and then you will come to your own conclusion. Sure. Maybe it is 4, or maybe it's not 4.
Right.
But the idea is that you went through the process of going through it and
instead
looking
of
at different, and
which
possibilities.
Which is what a lot of people do, just accepting what the authority is saying, or without, because not a lot of people have time to go through the weeds, doing their own investigation, or
Yeah. No, I mean, it's very true. And I think this is actually a good subject to talk about on a future podcast, is how the human mind thinks, right? There's a very popular book called Thinking Fast and Slow by, what's his name? Daniel Kahneman. Mm-hmm. But essentially it talks about our system where our brain works in 2 modes. Fast is we take a lot of our biases, and we just kind of act on built experiences and built biases and perceptions built into it. So for example, let's say that, you wanted to make a left turn into a driveway, or you're driving to work or something. You don't need to think too hard about it. You kind of just go on autopilot.
Sure.
But if I was to say hey, David, I want you to solve and build a system for me for this project, you're not going to go on autopilot. You have to think about it for a moment. You have to slow down your system and think. And the book essentially talks about there are certain times when we should be thinking slow, but we think fast. And there are certain times when we are thinking too slow, when it could just be done intuitively. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of fallacies and a lot of cognitive biases that are built within us that we don't seem to realize. And that's essentially what the book is talking about. And it's very applicable to today's society, where you can look at United States or Japanese society and say, well, this is what I grew up in. Therefore, these are my biases, and therefore my perception of the world is accurate and true. Instead of taking a look back and say, you know what? I am a US-centric person. these are my US centric bias and this affects my perception versus a Japanese person. And so instead of essentially putting yourselves in the other person's shoes and thinking, well, if I was to grow up in that person's environment, would I have a different outcome? And the answer is probably yes.
Right.
Because why do people come up with different solutions in life? Because we grew up differently.
Yeah.
And that's something that goes just over the head of hundreds of people. And that it blows my mind because this is why I feel like it's very important for people to travel, because the more you travel and the more you interact with different societies, you just open your mind more. Yeah. It's like, oh, you know what? Yeah, US does this great, but maybe we can improve on this, and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody should get out and, enjoy the world a little bit more, not be so grounded.
Yeah, and it's, to me, going back to the whole like Portland and border security and all that, it's like, yeah, we definitely have improvements that needs to be made. But on the flip side, you could look at Japan like, you know what, maybe they need to loosen up a little bit. Maybe they need to encourage more immigration to encourage more economic productivity or boost population decline.
Yeah. Well, I think they are. It's just that they have the fine line of space versus where we don't. We have all these open, country parts that, can house and whatnot. But in Japan, they're building up now versus, building wide because
there's not enough land.
Not enough land. I mean, I'm sure there is, but like how much do you want to make that into cities and stuff, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So like the mega cities, they're all building upwards, but size is always an issue with a island nation. So
because I feel like from what I've remembered, a lot of Japanese lands are not agricultural, they're not very farmable and they're not very livable.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it's just mountainous terrain.
Yeah. And there's a lot of rice fields, but not other like regular farming lands and stuff like that.
And so like, I wonder like maybe it'll be too expensive, but like you could like maybe level the mountains to a way that you could build homes, but I don't think that's very practical. I don't think that's economically feasible, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of Japanese are now leaving Japan though. So, I mean, because it's
so expensive.
So it's not, I don't know about expensiveness, but like just being confined and, living in such a small area versus, seeing out what else is out there, I guess. But
I feel like a lot of Japanese people who leave,
they're going to like South America and stuff like that, which is kind of a weird place.
Why South America? Do you know the reason?
I mean, Japan has always been infatuated with like Brazil and Argentina, or
do you know why?
I don't know. I mean, soccer culture is so Brazil is good in soccer. So
I thought they were more into baseball.
Baseball, soccer, tennis is probably their top three sports.
But not basketball?
It's rising popularity.
But baseball is number one.
Baseball is probably number one, followed by soccer. And then tennis, I guess, but because even tennis, you have Japanese players that make it, up there, but they don't last because their statue and power is, as good as.
Well, I mean I think we talked about this last time, but Shohei
Ohtani.
Shohei.
Yeah.
I mean, he got 700 million with the Dodgers, LA Dodgers.
Yeah. I mean, you always see Japanese players from Japan playing in the National League over here. Versus you don't really see.
Do they have like their own MLB over there?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm assuming the money is greater here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I figured
bigger contracts over here. But I think in the World Series isn't usually like the U.S. versus Japan that end up in it.
I really don't know.
Cuba maybe, like I know those countries.
Like, I don't know why would like Cuba comes out of nowhere,
right?
Yeah, like I was like, why would Cuba?
Of all
be
the South American countries, Cuba is always like really good at baseball, but
yeah, like, it makes you wonder why. Like, where did Cuba come from with baseball? You would think like they're anti-American, so they will not play.
We can explore the sports of the world in one podcast and see why they're good at it.
We should, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like I like the idea of living there, but in my head versus reality, I wonder how big of a difference it would be. Because, like we go visit there for 2 weeks, right? It's not the same when you live there for years.
Yeah, of course.
And so it just makes you wonder, like, I wonder what the biggest adjustment would be. Like, what was your biggest adjustment from Japan to United States?
The transportation, just not being to freely go as much as I can.
Which one do you like more?
Definitely, I like driving a car, but I like the convenience of not having a car. I can still get around everywhere. If my car breaks down in the States, I'm pretty screwed, right?
I feel like I like the public transportation more just because I don't have the hassle of maintaining that car.
That and being able to multitask while you get to your destination.
Yeah, you don't have to think about driving. Like if you want to take a nap or close your eyes. But I mean, on the flip side, it's like I've been on a busy train. I was like, damn, dude, you feel someone's nuts on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you definitely have to pick and choose your.
I can definitely see someone molesting a woman there.
Well, I mean, Japan, the trains have,
like the female
women,
only.
Yeah, female dedicated.
It's like the pink one, right? Like as a pink sign.
We almost went into it without knowing.
We?
Oh yeah, it's pink. It looks friendly, and then we find out it's a woman only one. I'm like,
we
actually went into it and we had to go to the next cart over.
I think I followed you.
Yeah. Because I knew what it was right away.
I probably would have been like arrested.
Being stared
because I didn't know. Like it's like I
don't get handsy.
I'm pretty sure there was English signs. I'm pretty sure there was.
And it's a very big problem thing in Japan, I guess. Those kind of like molestations. So I mean, Japan has its problems too, right? Like,
but why do they have that problem? Is it because of the sex industry?
It's because of. It's also shameful for a girl to speak up about it. So like, how, in the States, accusing or speaking up about being raped was a thing, right?
But I just
sexual
feel like
assault, like that is in Japan.
Seems like the Japanese men are more
brazen, right?
They're more likely to do it than American men.
Yeah. Because they know that they won't speak up. Even in the act of you doing it.
Is that the reason why?
Right. So they feel ashamed when it's being happened to them, so they don't speak up.
Does Japanese men need like those advertisements like "Don't touch women"?
Probably. I mean, go through the sexual harassment course.
Don't harass women.
Right. It's not okay to rape.
Yeah. You ever seen those?
In the States, like we were all like rolling our eyes, right? But in Japan,
apparently they did not get the memo.
Right.
Like it's not okay.
It might
touch
actually
them.
be something that they needed. A course in, where in the States we're rolling our eyes like don't rape people, like we know that's a bad thing, but
apparently
in Japan they might need a little lesson learned.
I think they might need to kind of switch to HR here, like they need our HR for like a couple of years.
Definitely the States gets a bad stigma of what men are believed to be thinking of what they are always thinking.
I think Japanese people they might need a little men shaming over there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there.
They need a little Me Too movement.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's the other reason I like their public transportation is just
it's clean to begin with.
Well, it's clean. It feels safe, but it's so damn convenient. Like. The biggest problem with the United States
too. It's not that expensive.
Was it cheap?
I mean, like a bus fare or train fare will be like $240, $260, which is like $2.
Do they have like an unlimited pass, or is it they just pay?
I'm sure there are passes that get you rewards, I guess, in a sense. I may be mistaken, but I know there's ways to have it all in one spot where you don't have so many avenues of paying, so it's convenient for sure.
No, if Japanese people adopt the Zoom system, I feel like, because a lot of those subway or train systems are privately owned. Like, man, those people would lobby against the Zoom culture.
Yeah, no, for sure. But so my one criticism of having this kind of system, and I don't think why the States will never adopt it, is because it's prone to social credit. So like China, like if you have everything tied to like your cell phone, right? Mm-hmm. And if you have like a bad social credit, they turn that
I
off,
see what you're saying.
Then you get penalized, and I think that's becoming more of a thing in Japan, how it is in China.
Well, it's encroaching the United States too now. You remember like during the when did Trump do the whole? Do you remember the Proud Boys?
What do you mean about the Proud Boys? Yeah, they're still around. So
no. Do you remember the whole? So I guess where I'm going with this is that. There was this moment, I forgot what year it was. I think it was Trump's election year, 2020. Mm-hmm. So the Proud Boys was standing, it was like, Proud Boys did something and their bank account with Chase was canceled.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you know that story?
I think I heard of it. Yeah, but
Yeah.
stuff like that, or even like the truckers that were
in Canada.
Yeah, they had all their bank statements.
Yeah, and so
that was to make them stop.
Yeah, and so like it's pretty much that, right? Where banking is a necessity. There is no way to live in a modern society without banking. I mean, you can argue Bitcoin and crypto, but let's be honest, you and I never transact with Bitcoin. It's not widely adopted where you and I can buy food with crypto.
Right, today at least.
Yeah, today at least. So you still need to be part of a banking institution. Sure. But if JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, they said, oh, you're, a right fascist group, quote unquote, they're not going to bank you. They're going to cancel your account and give you your money back.
Yeah.
And that is the form of social credit where, well, if we're going to go down that route, what's to stop people to say, oh, you did a bad tweet, cancel.
Yeah. I mean, same thing with technology. Like, who is censoring? Like, who's determining what is censorable and what not? So it's all about the people who are at the helms.
But have you seen or heard anything like something like that happening in Japan?
Not yet, but because the system's in place, what's to stop?
Like, what's to stop the government
to just do it? The reason why I don't think it can happen in the States is because of the Second Amendment.
Like, there's too many people who fight against it.
There's too many. Yeah, if enough unjust social freezing happens, then enough people will rise up to push back against that system, where other countries don't have the means to push back. So that's why it can happen in places like China.
Like in America, we have I think we are pretty evenly split, right? 50% are liberal, 50% are conservative.
Is it? I thought it's more liberal, or there's. Because the population vote always goes towards Democrats. So I thought there's more.
The population goes to the liberal side, but the electoral vote tends to be pretty even majority of the time. Sure. And so I wonder, would you say, does Japan's politics, is it like that too, where you have conservative and liberal people?
I think it's socialism and conservative is a split in Japan.
But socialism is their version of liberalism?
Well, I mean, how do you define liberalism, though?
I just think when I say liberal, I just mean anything that's more...
Conservative means to conserve, right? To try to maintain
limit government size, increase individual freedom. That's how I define conservatism.
Yeah, I mean, that's how the United States conservatism is. But conservatism in a general term just means to conserve what's in place, right?
So... is Japan's conservatism same as the United States, or is it different?
Well, I know they're nationalistic, which is more of a conservative ideology, right? So they want to maintain their makeup of their cultural makeup. Yeah. But then the socialism part comes in because they want a community or collectivism kind of stuff. So that's the split. Yeah. But I mean, I would assume it's like this: the differences between conservatism and liberalism here. Because people's principles aren't that widely different from country to country.
Because I guess I'm just thinking, I don't know to what degree. Like, I really don't know anything about like Japanese political history, but I wonder if their society is moving more towards progressiveness, where like over here, we are more, I guess, quote unquote, woke culture. I wonder if Japanese is kind of embracing that over there too, or not really.
Good question. Yeah.
Right. I mean, because I feel like that's a very American thing, this woke culture.
It is.
I feel like I haven't seen that in other countries.
Well, I know Japan pushes back on a lot of the wokeness that like, for an example, I guess right now, in the video game industry, their localization is happening, where translators are taking the original Japanese context and changing it to more of a, I don't know, their agenda, like, pushing like patriarchy or was it feminizing, or stuff like that, or women's rights and stuff like that. In Japan's none of that, so they take that kind of translation and translate over here. So Japan got wind of that and like, what are you guys doing with our work? And
do you know which one it was? Like,
which studio? It's on YouTube that's being talked about. I think it was like Dragon's Maid was the
Okay. So it was like
anime.
their translation and they were sort of putting their own spin on
No,
it.
yeah, they definitely was. Like if you
Okay.
look at the original the text
Yeah.
compared to what they translated to is widely different. They're just putting it in because they're woke culture, as you say.
Because, I wonder, like, if you talk to most of the student or most of the people that's our generation in major metropolitan cities, they're far and large are going to be liberal, right? You go to the more rural area, conservative. Like we're talking mid-belt states.
Yeah.
Or the Rust Belt states. And so I would assume that's going to be similar in Japan, where the older population will be more conservative, nationalistic. They're going to be very keep true to your Japanese culture,
Right.
things of that nature. While the younger generation might be more willing to have a pro-immigration policy, or they might be willing to have a more lenient policies on certain things. That's what I would assume is how it goes over there.
Right. Well, I think the woke culture in the States is mainly driven by rebellion.
Yeah.
Like people just want to rebel against the norms and changing the makeup.
Because
In Japan, you don't have that many people that rebel against social norms, I guess.
Because there's really, I'm sure there are, the gay community is there.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't feel like it's as vocal as it is here.
Well, I mean, gay in Japan was already an accepted thing. It was
was
never.
it?
I mean, for a while. I mean, I don't know how different it was back in the early 1900s to what it is today, but it was never a backlash to. Because because what is it? Homosexuality is a big stigma in the States because of religion. In Japan, it's Shintoism and Buddhism is the main religion over there. So I don't think they saw homosexuality as evil as how it's seen, how it used to be seen over here in the States.
So does Japanese adopt the policy of don't ask, don't tell?
I don't know. I feel like they, to keep a community safe, they have to tell. So I feel like that's not the case. Like if you see something,
can you legally marry as a gay couple in Japan?
Good question too. I don't know.
A lot of questions, because that was a very big thing in America.
You're right.
Yeah,
I want to say
wonder
no, but I also want to say that they don't care at the same time. Because maybe in Japan they don't get the same benefits when you get married versus the same benefits you get.
Oh, I see, like tax or
Right.
legal benefits,
Right.
or I see what you're saying.
And that's the reason why
Yeah.
it was a big thing in the States, was because you don't get those.
Yeah, it was the
given
medical benefits, the tax benefits, the legal benefits. Because, not definitely. It's that's a whole nother conversation in and of itself. But because I know in Korea, the LGBTQ community is it's there, but it's nowhere near the level of here.
Right.
Korea is still a very
Well, I want to say the LGBT
No.
community in the States blew up because of social constructs and because you want to be in the in crowd, right? Right now,
Yes.
in grade school, it's popular to be in the LGBT, or you have a victim mentality, right? So you want to
victim mentality, identity politics.
Right.
You make your whole.
So people want to be part of that group now. So that's why, I think why the gay population and transsexual population has had a sharp increase. People are saying it's people are more comfortable to come out now, and that's why.
But you think it's just people who are claiming it when they're not really it?
Right, because
Yeah.
that's the popular thing to do.
I could say that. I think it's both factors. We just don't know to which degree it is either one. There's this in the United States there was this super popular. What's her name? She was a trans. I want to say she was a male to female. I really don't remember, but she was pretty
Sports.
popular. She transitioned from one gender to another gender.
Mm-hmm.
And that individual was changed when that individual was a kid.
Right, so she had regrets now, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it was a she or he. Let's just say she. I think it was a she.
I think it was a male to female.
Yeah. But she essentially said that, now that she's older, she regrets it.
Right.
She wished that she didn't
Right.
essentially chemically castrate herself.
So yeah, I mean, those surgeries and stuff is what I disagree the most. Because
it should only be done when you're an adult.
Because you can fully, because right now, like the way to ask this question, where it makes a lot of people start saying, because default people say, should kids be able to have the surgeries if they wish to, and people will say yes, they know what they want, they should be able to do. But then if you ask them, should people under the age of 18 get tattoos? Should you allow a kid to get a tattoo?
Oh yeah, I know what
they'll say no
about.
right away. But I'm like, what's the difference then? Like,
no, to me it's a very firm no, right? Because if you want to support the trans community, go support them.
Yeah.
Let that kid identify as whatever they want it to be.
Right.
If that kid says, hey, I'm a woman or I'm a man, whatever, let them be what they want. Support them in to whatever degree you want to support them in. But don't let them do any changes until they're older.
Irreversible surgeries should not be done until you are fully developed.
Yes, because your brain will change. Mm-hmm. I think about what I wanted when I was 10. I thought about what I wanted when I was 18. At 25 till now,
completely
it changed
within 4 or 5 years all the time. So.
It changed. There is no way you know what you want when you are under 18-year-olds. There's no way.
I agree.
And even if one kid knows what they want, the vast majority don't. I remember, when I grew up, I thought I was going to be something else, completely different what I ended up now.
Right.
And so whenever I hear those stories, I can't help but wonder, it's a double-edged sword where, in the United States, you get that individuality and that freedom. But man, when it goes bad, it can go bad. Mm-hmm. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. I really think people forget that.
Yeah. No, I agree.
That's what we need. We need more of that social shaming. We need to bring some of that Japanese social shaming here,
I don't disagree.
So, to me, I like some of, I don't know. Let me take it back. I don't necessarily have to like what they're saying. I get what they're saying, right? I think really the original message that I always get from them is, let us be us, include us, don't treat us any differently. Where it gets out of control is they start shoving that down everyone's throat.
Sure.
And so it goes away from now you're just inconveniencing everyone and you're not making us your allies. You actually make us be opponents, not because we stand against your policies, but because we don't like you.
Exactly.
And so a lot of people, I bet you, if you really sat down with a lot of vocal opponents, I want to say a good majority of them, they probably don't really care.
No.
But then they just, out of spite, they say, you know what? You fuck with Budweiser, you put a trans person on it, we're not going to drink your product.
They're still recovering to this day, but Trump did endorse them recently. So
Budweiser?
They said, let's forgive them. Because I think Budweiser is endorsing Trump for his 2024 election.
Budweiser is, but that's the thing, right? It kind of goes back to it's you as a company, you should not be engaged in politics.
I agree. It's
Budweiser should not be
suicide.
doing it.
Yeah, it's suicide to the company. Disney tanked
Target.
What did Target do?
So Target had this LGBTQ during the Rainbow Month, where they put their clothing in the front.
Yeah.
And people didn't like it.
Okay.
Because it was very supportive of the rainbow community.
Sure.
And so people kind of boycotted, and then Target sales went down. So if you look at their stock relative to Walmart, it's nowhere near the same. Walmart's reaching all-time high and Target is barely recovering because their sales are just not doing great. So that's why I always say, woke makes you broke.
It's true.
And so it's just look at Disney, look at Target, look at Budweiser. That's why Modelo is now number one. Budweiser always held number one, but now it's Modelo.
Really?
Yeah.
Anheuser-Busch, huh? No longer number one.
They were number one, but now Modelo took over. Yeah, so I don't, Japanese advertisements, they're so wacky whenever I see them because they got some crazy advertisement. But I don't think I ever seen them do any political statements from a company.
Yeah, probably because they're not as divided as us.
Yeah.
So they don't need to cater to one or another. They just literally just selling their product for all instead of saying this is for you guys or this is for these people, or only you, this type of people can use it, because that's sentiment in the States right now. Like, this is for Black people, this is for, Spanish people.
And that's true too.
Like, white people can't culturally appropriate, or stuff like that, or you can't have an afro if you're a white guy. I'm like, none of that happens in Japan.
I mean, man, like, when I think about like, the other, this is sort of separate, but when I think about like Japanese companies, the other thing too is like the quality of the products is good. Like this shirt that I'm wearing, I think it's called United Aero or Global Aero. Mm-hmm. It is expensive. It was like an $80 shirt, but it's like the quality is nice.
Fashion in Japan is...
they're very fashionable.
Yeah.
Like I could never pull off half of their style.
And the fashion changes from prefecture to prefecture. It's like, in California, mostly people have the same style, all of California. You have to go all the way to New York to get a different style. In Japan, and you like go 20 minutes to a different prefecture, they're all having their own different styles, and just like.
But what's crazy too is like all the women, they wear high heels all the time, and it's like, dude, bitch, I know your ankles are hurting because
they wear high heels and short skirts during winter all the time, which is
why
very
short
weird.
Skirts?
I don't know. They just like showing off their legs apparently.
But they don't show off cleavage.
They don't. Yeah, so they never have cleavage showing.
So what's this? What's this like? Why is legs okay but not cleavage?
I don't know. For sex centric,
so that's their sex symbol, legs.
Country, yeah, it is. But so yeah, showing off your cleavage is very frowned upon, but showing off your legs is
because I feel like I only see cleavage on a Japanese person when they're like an adult actress.
Probably, or not. Yeah, not even in dramas or movies, you don't see actresses showing their cleavage.
I'm trying to think of
only probably when they're like wearing like evening gowns or dresses to go out, they'll have cleavage. But work setting,
I don't know. You're true, but you're right. Now that I think about it, I don't think. But yeah, no, legs is a very big thing over there.
Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but yeah, it is.
Because now that I'm trying to think about it, every time I've been on the train, they would either wear short skirts, or no, it was always short skirts. Yeah. But I mean, it wasn't like short. It was like up to their knees or maybe slightly above.
Some parts in Japan, they are shorts. So, and it's like 0 degrees weather too. And they're like wearing like bomb ass jackets, but short skirts. I'm like, something's not making sense here. You're definitely cold by wearing that big ass jacket, but you're going to suffer with your legs for whatever reason.
I mean, are you a leg person?
I mean, this is going down a weird subject line in a podcast, but
that's okay.
I don't know. You can maybe have a members only part that can get the unedited footage.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Members
all right,
only.
well, that was our episode 2, so you could use that as an outro.